Hey, welcome to Clarksville Vibe the show where we tell the stories of the people in Clarksville who make this place the best place to live in America. I'm your host, Kevin Kennedy Jr., Clarksville native. Thank you for finding the podcast, jumping in on this episode. We're really glad to have you. We believe that we share a lot of valuable content. Today is going to be just like all the others, highlighting people in town that make this place the best place to live. Today we've got Jesse Presley. Don't really have to introduce him more than that. He's an exciting guy to meet. He's one of those guys where once you've met him and you see him around town, you go out of your way to go say hey, because he just brings a smile to your face every time you see him. He is the office manager at Altra Federal Credit Union, so you might have seen him in that role at some point, or you might just see him cutting up around town, telling stories. It's big laugh, big smile everywhere he goes. So we're super excited to have him today. Before we jump into the content, we'd love for you to rate or review this any way that you can. And thanks as always for stopping us or saying that you've seen our content or listened to it. However it is, we really appreciate that feedback in person as well. So Jesse, man, this is exciting. You know, I also should say this is probably the least prepared I've ever been for an episode, intentionally. Okay, because every time I see you, the conversation goes off the rails. So before we even record this, I think we've already titled it "Off the Rails."
I have, I've definitely. That's not been the only time that's described me or my conversations, Kevin. So I would agree that that's a really, really good title for this.
Yeah. Well, so I do feel like we have to tell people where we met. So we've actually met through a chamber organization, Clarksville Young Professionals. I think I might have aged out at this point. With the gray in your beard, you might have aged out also.
I believe I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was fun. You know, I got to be a chairperson for a year. You were one of the presenting speakers that year, and Ultra has always been an institution in town that's been really involved in our community. And so that's probably been 6 or 7 years ago at this point.
For sure.
And as I was saying on the intro, now whenever we see each other, it's always hey man, what you been up to?
It's always it's like we pick up right where we left off, and you know that's gonna be kind of where you described who I try to be each and every day, and when someone can genuinely do that, it really lets me know that I'm doing what I intend to do each and every day of my life. So. You know, your intro was really spot on with what I try to do, and it's as genuine as can be because I know you would tell me if it wasn't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's it. And, you know, it's guys like you are fun to be around because you always bring a smile to our face. But I think that sometimes that fun and the energetic personality kind of doesn't allow people to see how brilliant you are in some ways, and so I'm going to try to draw it out of you, and we might draw it out in the reverse direction, but we're going to let it ride here. Yeah,
be prepared for whatever's to come.
Also a great episode title. So tell me, man, are you a Clarksville native? I should know this, but I don't know.
So I am a Clarksville native, quote unquote. I actually grew up across the river, went to Montgomery Central High School.
Never guessed that. I'm just kidding.
Hey, I come by it honestly. Again, I'm as genuine as they come. My aunt was actually the principal at the elementary school out there, and she was out there for, I think close to 40 some odd years. So, how you describe me runs deep in our family, especially the Presley side of the family. And once folks know us, they know us for life. And she used to always tell me, she goes, you know, I love being principal and having the tenure that I do, but at the end of the day, I can't even go to Walmart because it takes me 3 hours to shop. So
because you're getting stopped by everybody that you know.
Everybody. And I mean, over 40 years, K through 5, and the amount of kids and the amount of parents, I mean, the you know, people don't realize that I was actually at the Partners in Education breakfast this morning, and people don't realize the impact that those teachers have.
100%.
But what I hope to talk about a little bit about today is we can all be teachers in that sense, that we can all make an impact on each and everybody's life that we come into contact with. But no, I'm born and raised right here. I'm a unicorn, as many people would say, here in Clarksville. And went off to college, came back. Me and my wife got married, and we just settled into Clarksville and call it home.
You living south of the river now?
No, I actually live right out, just exit 11 out there. But our intentions are to get back over to the homeland.
Got it. That's what people call it. Well, I love that. And your point on the educators, and I feel like Altra's an institution that's always been a partner in education. My mom was a longtime elementary school principal. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
So she became a principal probably when I was, 10 or 12 years old, and just retired maybe a year ago. So as she served as a principal, she opened Hazelwood Elementary, which is on Needmore Road.
Yeah.
And then she opened Barker's Mill, which is on Tiny Town, right? And she stayed at Barker's Mill all the way till she retired. So I think we have an appreciation for educators. And it's funny, one of the, how when you watch something on the internet, it shows you same videos. So it has learned that I like to see when celebrities interact with their childhood teacher, right? So that, it's like this guy's on a stage, he's got 20,000 people in the audience. He's like, oh, hey, it's Miss So-and-so, my first grade teacher. And you realize those are really powerful connections. Right. Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about what you were talking about, how we might not be an educator. I'm obviously a pediatric dentist. Mm-hmm. You're working in the financial industry. How do we get to be people of influence to young kids?
Well, I mean, I've always, it wasn't until probably after college until I really figured out that we have a purpose. Every person out there has a purpose in life, and that purpose is to make an impact on the people that are around us. And my intention was to always make a positive impression upon those people. Because as you know, the world that we live in today, the environments that we walk into that we may not even know what we're walking into, definitely shape and form us and our responses to those. So at the end of the day, kind of where I've always went is understand and know how to relate to people. People in general, I just like to get to know people because I can learn something from them. Whether they know it or not, they can impact me. Mm-hmm. And my intention is to go in and make a positive impact on them. Either give them that confidence that they lack, give them that education about finance that maybe they're just too prideful, that they don't want to release that information out to you, or they feel ashamed of what they've done. There's no reason to feel ashamed. We're all walking around with baggage, either from the past or possibly things that we're going to walk into
about
that
to
we
do
don't
tomorrow.
Even know. That's right. But just impacting people with the experiences that we've had. And, a lot of people, I was an only child growing up.
Okay.
And a lot of influential people in my life have been older people. And so my mom and dad had older friends. Well, I didn't have any brothers or sisters, so my friends became older people.
Wow.
So I absorbed all those experiences and listened to all those stories, hence why it seems like I have a new one every time you hear me, because I've got 40 years worth of that for the most part, that I feel like people just want to hear genuineness, just genuine, real life. It's not about the end result. It's not about the award that you got. It's about the journey along the way and what you learned.
Yeah, and how you impacted people.
See it.
Yeah, one of the things you shared with me early on is, some of the struggles that you had being young and married, and as you put it, not having anything.
That's it.
Yeah. So how did that time period in your life shape you?
So, again.
And how young were you?
Well, I mean, I was probably, it's been a long time ago. So I was in my mid-20s when me and my wife, Sarah, got married. And, we met in high school. We went off to college together. And, I say if you can go off to college with your high school girlfriend and come back with her, like you have to marry her.
Sure.
At that point.
And I'm up with you for that long.
That's exactly right. And I'm pretty sure she got I looked at my watch and I was like, the time's running out. You better ask her to marry you, or something's probably not going to end up the way you want it. But we knew what we wanted to do. We're planners by heart. And we just settled down and just finally realized, we need to blaze our trail and figure out where we're headed.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much to do that with. I mean, my parents didn't give us anything. I had a 98 S10 pickup is pretty much all I had.
Yep.
And but I knew through my ambitions and the drive that I have that if I figured out what I wanted to do, I wouldn't give up until I got there.
Yeah.
And so, we just set out and we just blazed that trail together.
So did you move here back home right after college?
We moved back to Clarksville after college.
What was your first job?
College. My first job, that's a great story for me to tell you. So, I knew, I know this is going to come as a shock, but I should be in sales, right? I was a marketing major in college, and sales is something that I just, because you have to get to know people.
Right. Yeah.
And it just came naturally to me. So I went out for a bunch of different jobs, and, I was willing to do whatever it took to get there. And I knew it probably wouldn't be the last place that I worked. So I was willing to do what it took to get in the door. Needless to say, the good Lord above never places anything at my feet. He makes me work hard for it because he knows that's what drives me, I feel.
Sure.
And it's a gift that I have, and it's one that I don't ignore.
Yeah.
It's when I realized that this isn't going to come easy. You just need to get in there and dig in. And went through 5 or 6 jobs, and last one there were 250 candidates. I made it down to the last 2 people. And they shipped me off or they sent me to Knoxville for an interview. So I went up there, I interviewed in a panel interview with the CEO, the VP, all this stuff. I mean, coming right out of college, I'm like, wow, this is maybe a little bit more than I asked for.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I didn't get the gig.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the day, just as we're sitting here, I was sitting on the couch at Mom and Dad's. And this is before we had got married, but really close to whenever we were going to. And Dad could just tell that I was just distraught. Mm-hmm. And you could tell that it hurt him just as much as it hurt me. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to give up. I'm mad. I'm mad now. Mm-hmm. That desire and that fight.
that righteous indignation. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that's it to the T. And I kept going. And I said, and I had a very honest conversation with Sarah at the time, and I said, what do I do? And she goes, you're going to work hard. Why don't you find a place that represents and appreciates people who work hard, and they reward them by moving up the ladder? And she goes, why don't you get into a bank? And I'm like, I hate math. And she goes, I know, I tutored you all through college. And
you're the reason I have a degree. Yeah, I'm the reason you have a degree.
That's exactly right. And we still tell that story to this day, and it's the biggest honest truth there was. And I'm like, okay, well, where do I start? She goes, we'll start out at the bottom. Yeah. And, after interviewing with a CEO and a VP, you don't want to hear go to the bottom. Mm-hmm. But I've never been too prideful to not start at the bottom.
Yeah.
And I can genuinely and honestly tell that story is I don't care what it takes. I'm willing to get in there and start at the bottom because I know I won't give up until I get.
So what does the bottom of a financial institution
look like? So I started out doing everything. So I started out being a FSR and a teller. So my job duties were split.
Okay, yeah.
So I could never focus on one. So it's like I'm jack of all trades, master of none. And I'm like, man, this isn't going to really bode well for my career. So I really started focusing on really just the financial understanding and the lending and the accounts and the product side. And I went into my boss and I said, hey, I really don't, it's not that I can't be a teller. It's not that I don't enjoy it because I get to talk to people and hand them cash. I mean, who don't like that? But I said, I really want to focus on becoming more.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you're closing loans at the teller line and managing that job and helping our other office out. She goes, we had the need for that for another lender, another FSR. And I said, well, I'm interested. And she said, okay, let's go. Yeah. And so from that point on, I've never really looked back. It's always been straight ahead from that point.
Who were some of the people here in town that you felt like were inspirational to you or influential to you along the way?
Man, there was, there's so many people that don't even realize it, that I learned from their stories, or from the stories that other people had of them. I can't even name them. But my boss at the time, I don't even know if she's still here in Clarksville. Her husband was in the military. Actually, he was in the military with my father-in-law here at Campbell. And she taught me, she understood me, and she knew that I had that fight, and she never gave it to me easy. Yeah. And she started understanding, and that was really critical. That's cool. In me wanting and having that hunger for more. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah. So what does your wife do now? So my wife she's a math teacher? No, she's better than that. She's an accountant. She's a corporate accountant. Okay. So she really did know math. She did know math. Yeah. Still does. Yeah. She hasn't forgotten. Still tutors you at night. Yeah. She still reminds me whenever my numbers are off. But believe it or not, she's still in the same job that she got right out of college. Really? And that's kind of unheard of. Yeah, you don't really hear that in people our age. No. You know, I mean, I'm at the cusp of that oldest millennial range. I don't know exactly where you fall on that, but of course the myth out there is that millennials are all ungrateful, you know, unsatisfied people. Right. And, you know, so to hear somebody that's, you know, had a job for more than a decade, that's pretty impressive. So, you know, at some point I think you said around 08, 09, like you had a transition, you started going for your MBA, like re-entering the education world, and 08, 09 hits, and in the financial industry was maybe not as stable as what the dental industry might have been. And I was in school at the point, so I just watched everything from afar, and now, and as an adult looking back, I'm like, whoa, that must have been awful. Yeah. But as a young professional in the industry, getting your education at that point, what was your experience like? So like at that point, I had left the financial that I worked at before, because there were some changes that are occurring, and I'll tell you, it was the worst mistake I ever made my entire life. Wow. Career-wise. Do I regret it? No. Reflection and doing self-reflection and looking back, it was something that had to happen. Yeah. And I don't think I would be where I am today, but went to work at a financial in Franklin, Tennessee. Back before Nashville got big, I could make it there in about 45 minutes. Gas wasn't $6 a gallon, you know, so it was still lucrative. I was actually making more money at the time, but the promises that were made just weren't the promises that were followed through with. Yeah. Correct. And that happens in some cases, whether it's a redirection of the organization or it's a redirection in maybe where I was headed myself. But I had a college professor call me from where I went to college and said, hey, we're fixing to start up the first distance learning MBA for banking professionals. And I said, you're wanting me to spend some money, aren't you? And I said, usually you guys ask me for a donation, but for me to go back and get my MBA is one thing. So went back home, talked to my wife after I got that phone call, and she goes, funny you say that, because I was going to go back and get my MBA too. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess this is just going to work out great, isn't it? And I said, there's not just going to be one MBA in our house. There's going to be two. Me and her are very competitive. You can't get one if I don't get one. That's exactly right. So really that all worked out really good. But just the workload and then what they were giving me a return on, or their promise that they fell short of fulfilling. Sure. I came home one day, the stress was just about to kill me, and I said, do you care if I quit? And it's never a word. The word quit has never been in my vocabulary a day in my life. And she said, well, if it makes you come home and be happy, then you can quit tomorrow. And I said, okay. And as I always do, I give everybody second chances. Sure. So I went in, talked to my boss, typed out my resignation letter the day before, had it in my suit, coat, jacket, and if he answered those questions in a way in which I felt like they were going to be fulfilled, then that letter would stay in my suit coat pocket, and I would continue on and make do with what I got. But unfortunately for them, those answers to those questions were not answered to the level in which they needed to be. And at that time, I took the letter out, passed it across the desk, and started heading toward fulfilling my MBA and future and
so
further.
You were a full-time student at that point.
It was full-time, full-time. Finished the program in the amount of time that I was supposed to, and 08-09 hit. And so here I am with management experience from what I had done before, an MBA, and now I'm trying to walk back into the financial industry.
In banking.
Yes, exactly. Trying to walk back into an industry in which managers were being let go, middle management was being cut.
Wow.
And I started re-interviewing for jobs and kept being told, you're overqualified. You're overqualified.
Really?
You're overqualified.
Locally,
yeah. I was out there casting lines wherever, anywhere within drivable range. And I came home one day and I told Sarah, I go, hey, I think I'm fixing to take all my education off of my resume. She goes, why would you do that? And I go, what's obviously keeping me from getting a job? Yeah. Like, I just need to work. So I ended up going back, folding clothes, and working where I did while I was in college for my undergrad, working right beside high school and college kids. And Sarah could tell the impact that it was having on me is just, I hate to say this in today's world, but I mean, in reality, as a man who is a provider, who's been raised to take care of his wife and his family, it hit hard because it was that issue, that pride issue. And the best advice, my wife's obviously a huge influence and probably one of the most influential people in my life, top 3 for sure. She looked at me and she gave me this little bit of knowledge that has stuck for me, and I pass it on to everybody that I see that's been in my position. And that is, a job is what you do. It's not who you are. And if you really sit down and analyze that, I feel like there's so many people that make their job who they are.
Absolutely.
And it completely takes away from the human aspect of, it's not who they are. Yeah. That's man-made.
Sure.
You know.
It's a construct.
That's it. It's a construct. And from that point on, I never looked at his job. I always looked at, I'm going at what's going to be an extension of me and who I am.
Yeah.
And that's how I always chose my jobs from that on. And then after that, a few months later, next thing you know, the good Lord right in front of me places the credit union. I had a colleague of mine who called me and said, hey, we're looking for a lender. We never, ever have job openings because everybody stays here. Yeah. And I went in and interviewed and got the job. And I've been with Altra now for 11 years.
Wow.
And
I don't think I knew you'd been with them that long.
Yep, 11 years. I've been a manager out at the Wilma Rudolph office for 3 years. I've had a ton of people come through that I've worked with that's really helped form and make me into the banker that I am.
Yeah. You get to work with some great people.
I do. I really do. Both our members, our membership, or my colleagues, my employees that I manage each and every day. I tell them, you guys don't realize it. Y'all make an impact on me, believe it or not. I know I'm supposed to be one making the impact on you. I hope I am, but you guys impact me daily.
I could be wrong, but I feel like you're one of these leaders that leads with an open and a full heart, and you're just like taking people and you're loving them, and management's not easy, right? But there are different types of leaders, different types of managers, and some lead from just a heart for people. Yep. You seem to be that kind of person.
One of my things that I always tell my employees is I hire the person, I don't hire the employee. You're a person well before you're ever an employee. And if I don't respect you as a person,
it's not going to work out for you.
You can't respect me as your leader. And I feel like whenever you communicate that to people, and by all due respect, like it almost punches them in the face because they've never been communicated to that way. It's always, you're going to do it this way. You're going to do it that way. This is how I want it done.
Yeah.
And this
you're a gear in this machine.
That's it.
And you need to operate this way for the machine to continue to operate.
That's it. And, another thing that I would say, is a lot of times I tell them, you know, you hear in management in the business world and in any business type atmosphere, you're replaceable. Yeah, I mean, if I have to be honest, you're right. We're all replaceable.
Sure.
But the way that I've kind of explained it to them after sitting down and thinking about that and not really agreeing with it, like, yeah, you're replaceable, but look at it like your grandmother's favorite recipe. And like you do it to the T, but you ran out of baking soda and you replace it with something that is almost as good as baking soda.
Yeah.
That recipe changes.
Sure.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, that will never be
Replacements are not equal.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that from a human standpoint, from a person and loving people, you have to give that the same respect as you do with the saying of you're replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
That it's weighted in my eyes a little bit more than you're replaceable, because I want the perfect recipe. I want that environment to be perfect for the people that I interact with. And so we can all reap the rewards of that great, apple pie that grandma makes. Oh, yeah, there you go. We've all got our one.
Did your grandmother have one dish or something you remember?
Yes. It was her dumplings at Thanksgiving. We would eat as many as we could. We would make her make as many as she could. We would eat as many as we could Thanksgiving Day. Only that night to sit down and gorge ourselves again. And my dad and my aunt can do them almost as good. Dad is almost as good. Yeah. But I think that's probably one of those things where I come up with that analogy of it's just not the same.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that
not
seasoned
the same as grandma's dumplings.
That's it.
Yeah. It could be the cookware. You never know.
I mean, there are cast iron skillets out there that have been around for for centuries probably. And once you change that out, I mean, you're not going to have
it's not going to be the same product.
That's it.
I love it. Well, so I know you're all around town all the time.
Try to be.
You get to pay attention to, and I see you at events and things like that. What are some changes that you've seen in Clarksville that you're just super excited about?
I mean, I would say, you get out there in the community enough, you're always going to hear, you're always going to have the good, bad, and the ugly, right? Mm-hmm. But as somebody who has a desire to want more and just believes, very optimistic, very realist. I'm very much a realist, but I'm very much an optimist in the sense of when you work to produce a good product, you're optimistically hoping that it's going to make the impact that it should. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where I sit on Clarksville. Like, there's always going to be things that we could have done better. But at the end of the day, I think it's the optimism of what other cities similar to Clarksville we've seen them do and come from the sense of not having before, but they turned this corner and now, boom. I mean, we're no Austin, Texas, but I mean, if you've ever been to Austin, holy mackerel, the stuff that's down there,
it's unbelievable.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
And you hear about these cities that really were not, it's not that they weren't known, but they weren't known like they are today.
Sure. And
I just feel like we've got the drive in this town. We've got the people out there, such as yourself. I mean, what you've done with your practice, I mean, that was unheard of for Clarksville.
Yeah.
And I've heard nothing but great things from families around there. So, just when you open up the gates, the unknown for the opportunities, I believe that they're there.
Yeah. Totally
we have to have them.
Yeah. Yeah. Starts with good leadership. I think we're moving in that direction. We've had a good run the last several years, and want to see that continue. Hopefully they continue to take some risks and seize some opportunities. But I think it's exciting to be here. It's exciting to have a life that's, riddled in stories from Clarksville, and then be a part of some amazing things that are, turning the corner and making things happen and being a part of it. You know, people ask me sometimes, like, why did you start a podcast? Like, aren't you busy enough as a pediatric dentist? I'm like, well, yeah, actually I was. But what it was is I got to this place where I really believe that Clarksville is going to have a special future. Really do believe that.
Yep.
And either I'm part of telling the story as a lifelong resident, someone who loves to be out in the community, or I get to let somebody else tell the story.
Right.
I want to be the guy that tells the story.
Right.
There's no really, this isn't a great money maker. It probably cost me way more than I even know.
They do. Yeah. People don't realize it. They really do.
Lost time for sure. But I think the feedback that I get in the grocery store, at the ball field, at this, at that, and in the dental practice is just awesome. And it's fun to, you and I have not had the chance to sit down and just chat. Right. We see each other in an event, you talk for 4 or 5 minutes, and we're on to the next thing. Just busy people. Yeah. And so to give the people of Clarksville a platform where you can go and scroll through the names like, actually, I know him. I want to see what that big dummy's got to say today.
Right, exactly. And, and that's one thing where, you putting it in that context and that perspective, perspective's everything, right? Like you can completely miss the point if you're looking from the wrong perspective. And so what kind of clicked in my mind was reflecting back on those stories whenever I was a young boy, listening to those older people. We've now moved into the part, and I think it's very important, if those folks wouldn't have told their stories, who would I be today?
That's right.
And if we don't tell our stories, we could miss out. People could be missing out on opportunities or experiences that they were completely unaware of.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we definitely stand on the shoulders of great people. Yep. Bill Prine was a longtime pediatrician here. Was he your pediatrician?
No, I had Dr. Hobson was my...
So he's a dentist, but who do you remember? Pediatrician?
Doc. You said pediatrician. I'm sorry. Dr. Rhodes. Timothy Rhodes.
That's right. So he's since retired.
He told me, quick story, real quick. He told me whenever I was 9 years old, he said, Jesse, you're either going to be a Southern Baptist preacher or you're going to be a used car salesman. And I said, now reflecting back, man, he was pretty dang close.
Yeah, he measured me up really good.
At 9 years old.
That actually kind of terrifies me a little bit, because I see 9-year-olds every single day, and there's no telling what I say to some of them right now, and then it's like they're going to remember what Dr. Kennedy said to me when I was 9 years old. Like, I didn't mean that. I was just joking around.
Dr. Rhodes was a very impressionable pediatrician. He was great. I mean, there were people he were their pediatrician for years.
Yeah, and then went on to be, when they had kids, he got to be their kids' pediatrician. Were you at Montgomery Central around the time Katie Green was there? Or you
I was.
Older? Yeah, so she's a local pediatrician now.
So Katie was a year younger than me. Her parents and my parents grew up we lived actually about 10 minutes from each other.
Really?
Growing up.
So Dr. Pegram now, people may not have. Oh, yeah. Some people may not make that connection, but she's at Premier.
Yep.
Blessing the kids of our community. And
Katie's really good. Yeah. She's really good.
I'm glad she came back here. I think she went to college at Yale.
She did.
Right. Did medical school, I believe, in Memphis. We were there. It's kind of at the same time. Yeah. I'm not sure where she did her residency, but lucky to have her back in town.
Comes from a fine family. I mean,
isn't everybody across the river a fine family?
I mean, we can do that for another time. You can bring me back on and we can talk about the across the river rivalry. If you
I already did it with Eric Ellis, so you just light the fire.
Hey, so there you go. You've got 3 of us already you've talked about today. So we are fine folks.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Well, I hate to wrap up our episode, but I know we're getting towards the end. What else do you feel like our audience needs to hear from you?
I mean, at the end of the day, the one thing that I always try to leave people with is everybody can make an impact.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And the choice comes back to you. Mm-hmm. You either make a positive impact or a negative impact. Spoiler alert, there are a lot of people out there making negative impacts. So if you want to differentiate yourself, if you want to make yourself different than the pack, take that positive approach.
Yeah.
And you might be surprised. You know, it's kind of like a guy told me one time, you don't realize how many people are watching you over a lifetime. And if you realized the number of people that watched you over a lifetime, you would have been as nervous as a cat on a hot tin roof, you know.
Which is a pretty good visual.
That is a very good visual. That's the thing. And I choose to do it. Yeah. My grandmother was very influential with me. She taught me about the value of $1 because she grew up during Depressionary times. Wow. And that stuck with me. Yeah. My dad drove that home as well because that's how she raised him. Yeah. And I figured out my gift is talking to people about finances, talking to people about money. You know, everybody thinks they need to be a millionaire to have anything. You don't. It's about how you manage it. And I look at that as if it's how you manage money, how you manage yourself as a person, look at what you can have there too. Sure. And look at the impact that you can make.
Same discipline rolls over in every area of life.
That's it.
It just becomes glaringly obvious in finances. You know, I mean, because it affects how you can operate.
Well, it's just like my wife told me. I go, why do you like, by the way, I love math now. Okay. I have come over to the dark side. And
my 7-year-old calls herself a mathlete. She heard Mike Burnett. We attend Life Point Church, and he made a joke from the pulpit one time. It's like, I was never an athlete, but I was a mathlete. And it's like 7-year-old, you know, she looks at me and goes, what's a mathlete? And so now I see her like drawing pictures of herself, and it says mathlete, and she's like asking me. She's so bummed last night. She goes, you want to know the thing that I don't like about second grade? I like everything else, but they don't teach us our times tables. What kind of kid says that?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So anyways, you're a mathlete now.
Yeah. And so when it comes down to finances, 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah. It don't matter who your family is. It don't matter your political alignment. It doesn't matter what celebrity you like. Right. It don't matter if you agree that LeBron is better than Jordan. Yeah. He's not, by the way.
Spoiler.
But 1 + 1 always = 2. And that breaks it down to the individual. Yeah. So they start to realize that everybody else follows these same rules. So can I. Yeah. And then once you show them what it can be, like you show people what compound interest is over a $5 cup of coffee and what you can do with that over 52 weeks, over 5 years.
Over 25 years.
Over 25 years. You start going, I think we will never buy
too
coffee.
Much.
But that's just one little piece of someone's life that can truly make a difference later on down the road.
Yeah. Well, I think it's powerful because I think we are meant to, and people say, why don't they teach this stuff in school? I think they teach it and we just don't pay attention. Yeah. But some people just don't know. I'll be really honest with you. I was 35 years old before I really had a developing understanding. I don't even think I have a good understanding of it yet, but how interest rates affect people's ability to create new things, you know? And you hear this stuff from the Fed and this does that, you know, I never knew anything about that. Right. And all of a sudden, like, I thought 3.5% was normal because when I've been making my adult decisions, 3.5% was normal. And then I'm talking to people who are doing deals in the 80s and they're talking about 12, 16, 18. I bought my first mortgage at 18%. What? How does that happen? And so people don't have the knowledge that you have and the wealth of the accumulated knowledge that you have.
There you go.
So I love that you have a passion for helping educate people.
And people that come in with what they would consider a problem, like I take that and store it in the old steel trap up there because there's a good chance I may run into someone else that has that same that I need to pull that from to be able to help them get around that. Yeah. But every person is different. Yeah. So every financial situation is going to be different. Yeah. So when you look at it that way, like you think, oh, I'm over here in this group. Well, no, there's no one else but you with that situation. Yeah. You're going to have to reach out to the people who have that experience. They're the best ones to reach out. And that's what I enjoy doing each and every day.
Because and have fun doing it.
Man, and that's the thing about it it's not boring because I'm getting to interact with people. The boring part's the money aspect of it.
That's right.
But getting to know them and seeing kind of what makes them tick and how they respond. That's awesome. That's the best part of what I do and what I try to do each and every day. I mean, I fall short more times than none throughout the day, but I try my best just to keep moving forward.
Well, now that people have listened to you, they're going to come out and grab you, come say what's up to you when they see you around town. We're going to move to the lightning round. I'm going to start with a hunting question. I have to admit, and this is going to drive you crazy.
Yeah.
I've never been hunting.
Hey.
I grew up on a horse farm. My dad's not a hunter. Saturday morning for us, Sunday morning for us was go out and move the hay out of the barn, go throw it in the field for the horses, right? So we've never been hunting. Yeah. What's your favorite kind of hunting?
So I love to duck hunt. And so I went to school in Martin. Reelfoot was right down the road. At that time, I had never been duck hunting a day in my life.
Really?
And I'm so mad that I didn't take it up earlier because I could have made it to Reelfoot, got a hunt in, and still got back for my 10 o'clock class.
The things you learn.
The things, I mean.
The more you know.
The more you know, that's it. But duck hunting is my passion. Second would be turkey hunting.
Yeah.
It's just that people say, well, why do you like doing that? I go, a duck flies from Canada to Arkansas pretty much to migrate every year. That natural aspect of it, if you look at that, I'm sitting somewhere in its path. Uh-huh. And that duck may be 700 yards away from me, but I can set up a decoy spread and I can call on a call and deviate that duck's flight path. To me, that deception and the being able to do that, that's changing nature. Yeah. And that to me is just, I would rather honestly do that than shoot them. Yeah. But I am a huge, my dad taught me growing up, if you're going to kill it, you're going to eat it.
Yeah.
So I did not, that's how I live my life.
That's cool. I like that. I had on here, funny enough, your favorite Thanksgiving dish, but we already covered that. Yeah, it's grandma's dumplings.
How's that happen? That's it. That's it.
Now either cooked by dad or aunt.
That's it.
So first purchase, if you won the lottery, for the financial guy. You got no idea. You're probably putting it in a savings account or something.
I probably pick up the phone and call Eric and say, Eric,
how much taxes do I owe on this thing?
Eric, what do I need to do? No,
it'd probably be a duck blind.
My wife would kill me.
At that point, you might be good enough. It won't matter.
I'm a very simple guy, and I guess it's because the way that I was raised. A lot of people would probably go buy a car or this, that, and the other. Like, I would probably seriously take maybe 10 grand and go on a trip and invest everything else.
Sure. Yeah. Why change your life? Because when you change your life, then it's going to burn quick.
That's exactly right.
I love it. Do you have a go-to song for karaoke?
Go-to song? Love Shack.
You can pull it off. Oh,
if I've got somebody there to,
off the rail.
If I've got somebody to do the duel there, we can really. Okay. I do like the guy part, and they do the girl.
If you're ever at a wedding with Jesse Presley,
I've done it at a bunch of weddings.
I don't doubt it. Off the rails. That's episode whatever number this is.
Hey, this will be.
That was unexpected. I clearly anticipated Garth Brooks and Dunn. I was going for something in that, and Love Shack threw me off.
You want to talk to me more now, don't you?
Part 2. Here we go.
I thought about doing like a Zach Galifianakis with this, but I figured that you would kill me if I did, you know?
We could really do that.
Like a serious?
My head is shinier than yours. Yeah.
Well, I think we may have to get the people to vote on that one.
Yeah, well, I can change it real fast. Awesome, dude. This has been fun.
Dude, it
Always
has been
good to see
great.
ya.
Hey, I truly appreciate this. My employees back at the office, they will tell you I never talk about myself.
Yeah.
So this actually was pretty
fun. Yeah.
I might start doing it more
Well,
often.
you might have to go for it. Well, hey, if you have made it to the end of this Off the Rails episode, congratulations to you, because there's no telling what kind of value you got from this. But I know if you see Jesse now, you definitely you see the type of guy that he is. Go up, introduce yourself, tell him that you heard or saw him on this podcast. I'm sure he'd love to chat with you about it. But thanks for making it to the end of the show. Leave us a rating, a review somehow. That helps us grow our platform, helps us tell this great story about the people like Jesse who are from Clarksville and make Clarksville the best place to live in America. Thanks so much.